Welcome to Thimbleberry U. I'm Michelle Odell, your host, and of course with me is President and Financial Advisor, Amy Walls. Good morning, Amy.
Good morning, Michelle. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm excited because we're diving into the mailbag for this episode. We have letters from tech execs. They want answers, and they want answers regarding navigating personal finances as a tech executive. So the first one we have is, how much should I be saving for retirement?
Oh, gosh. Let's start out hard. I'm laughing at this because it's a great question. And I wouldn't have the job that I do if there's one straightforward answer. So I'm going to say that for someone who started saving really early, it also depends on the level of saving. That's going to be less now than it is for someone who started much later and maybe is saving the same amount. So we all know that it's really important to save as early as possible. It's about the time value of money and being able to build on that. The amount also matters, of course. So not knowing, the situation behind this question, I'm going to give rule of thumb. The idea here is that, how do I know if I'm even in the ballpark? But I am going to say to this person that really they need to talk to an advisor and get the specifics for their situation. So from a budgeting perspective, I know the big, terrible B word, budgeting is important. And most people do not want to get down into the nitty gritty and micromanage their and their family's expenses. That's overwhelming and distasteful. I don't like going to the dentist, and I would rather go to the dentist, I think, than do that. Okay? As an advisor. And I know that that's true for many of my clients. It's the last thing they want to do. So there's this idea of the 50-30-20 budget. Okay. And what that means is of your expenses, 50% of them can be your needs. 30% can be your wants. And 20% should be savings. Okay?
That's pretty straightforward.
Now, if you've got kids, let's increase that savings. If you're looking at college, I'm going to say 20% towards retirement. Now, here's the tricky part with that is for a lot of our tech execs and many of our clients, their 401k only goes so far. Right. It might be 7% of their salary, maximum funds, their 401k. So you've got to be saving outside of that. And that's where I think the lack of confidence can come in for people, especially our tech execs that have equity compensation. And so I got this stock. I may or may not have sold it. Does that count as savings? Right? Or do I count that in my income numbers? Well, yes, it is income coming in. And so a chunk of that needs to be saved.
Another question we had from tech executives, they want to know, what are the best investment options for my current financial goals?
All right. So there's obviously stocks, bonds, real estate as some big, asset classes, not even asset classes, groups that then have for stocks and bonds, some other specifics under those. So stocks are ownership in a company. Bonds are essentially that you've loaned money and now you're getting paid back. And real estate, I think, goes without explanation there. It's owning property. I think there might be a question behind the question.
Okay.
On this, I always share with my team, our job is to hear the questions behind our clients' questions. And I'm going to guess there is a question behind the question here. And I think that one of the struggles that we see come up with our tech executives and why I'm hearing this question is, well, I get this stock. What do I do with it? It's important to have a diversified portfolio. I'm guessing most of our listeners have heard that before. And I, in the podcast, talk about not only diversifying assets, but diversifying taxes. With receiving stock from the company you work for, it's really tempting to hold on to it. Sometimes people shouldn't because of their goals, and sometimes it's really a matter of preference. Okay, and why I say that is it's about where you're at in your journey. So before we even get into that journey, let me give a question that I think anybody who receives stock from their employer should ask themselves. Would you buy your company's stock with proceeds from your paycheck.
Exactly.
And if your answer there is no, well, then that's a good reason to not hold on to the company stock.
Exactly. Yeah.
If your answer is, well, I might, or yes, I think I actually would, well, then let's dig into that a little bit further.
Okay.
So how that ties to the journey is if you wouldn't, you're not going to want to hold on to stock longer than you need to. And I stress that because with different forms of equity comp, like incentive stock options, there's a time frame in order to have a qualifying disposition, which means a better tax treatment.
That's right.
Than a disqualifying disposition, which means it's taxed at ordinary income.
We've talked about that in other episodes for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But now, if you would buy the stock, let's talk about why. I know why can be an offensive question, but I think it's an important thing to get in touch with. Why would I buy it? Because I feel really good because I've got this knowledge and, okay, is that a bias? Is it, familiarity bias? Is it, something else? Or another piece is, are you already financially secure with all of your other investments that what happens with this employer stock doesn't really matter? If you're okay saying, if I lose it all, I don't care, but I'm feeling pretty good about the company, then sure, hold on to it. Or if maybe you've got this stock and you're saying, well, I might not buy my company stock, but I'm feeling like I'm willing to roll the dice to see if the company goes where I hope, because I think that will really hit it out of the park. And I really prefer to get a much bigger return and take that chance than to get a smaller guaranteed return. Well, then maybe holding that stock makes sense for you. Getting to the point of asking those questions says, well, where are you in your journey? Are you already comfortable? Do you need this money? Okay, let's say you do roll the dice and nothing comes of it. What is your backup plan? Do you have a way to make yourself financially secure? So the answer to this question, not knowing what the current financial goals are, I'd say is you do want to diversify based on what lets you sleep at night.
Right.
And underlying that, know what you're doing with your company stock and why.
All right. So another question they had was, how can I minimize my tax liability while maximizing my income and benefits? And this is a great question.
Yeah. So I am not a CPA.
Right. Exactly.
So obviously we talked about contributing to retirement accounts. So depending on let's use a 401k here. We're talking tech execs. If you're maximum funding that, do you have an option for a mega backdoor Roth? That might be something to consider to get some tax-free income in the future. And you can do that even while contributing pre-tax to, the early contributions into the 401k. Are you in a place where you can make some charitable donations?
Okay,
Can you do a donor-advised fund and be able to get a bigger tax write-off? Now, sometimes you need to balance that out. It might not make sense to do a little bit every year, but to do something bigger in a single year.
Right.
To get bigger benefit. I think another thing would be to ensure, and this I think works, financial planners and CPAs work well together on this. What are the projections for stock payouts? Because likely you're going to have additional dollars that you'll need to put towards that tax bill than what is withheld, if anything is withheld from your paychecks. Finding that right balance so that you're reducing penalties, so that you're also looking at the portfolio. This one isn't as much the CPA, looking at the portfolio for tax loss harvesting options, as well as just capturing gains, so that you've got some losses maybe to carry forward that could help if that makes sense for where you're at. A little one, if you've got kiddos and you're funding college, it's not a big thing here in Oregon, but contributing to those 529 plans, small reduction in your tax bill. I think having cooperation between a financial advisor and a CPA is a really good idea. I absolutely love it when my tech clients have a CPA that we can interact with. The other thing that is important here, and we're talking to tech execs, so I think it's really easy to assume, hey, I know the taxation of equity compensation. I got this. We see errors with this really consistently with newer clients and even existing clients. So there are misconceptions out there. One of the biggest ones is around restricted stock units or RSUs, and that's that they're taxed twice. And so you have to hold them to get the better rate. They're not. And then incentive stock options. I touched on the qualifying dispositions and the disqualifying dispositions. What are the real rules around that? And do you understand that? Now, if you've hired other people, you don't need to remember all that. You should have a little familiarity, right?
Right.
Make sure people know what it is. But another option can be something called 83B elections. This is with RSUs, and it's basically electing to pay the taxes up front. This can be a terrific option when the stock price is really low at the point in time that the stock is granted to you, and you're basically choosing to be taxed on it now versus later on when the stock price is higher.
So while we're talking about that, do you have discussions, meetings with people's CPAs? Do you talk to them alone, or do you have the client in the room with you? How does that work?
Yeah, it depends. Our clients most of the time have given us permission. We have a process that we go through so that they grant permission for us to share their financial information with their CPA. So we don't provide the tax documents to the CPA. We let our clients do that. That said, it might be that we have projections of what their equity compensation payouts look like. Okay. And we can provide that to their CPA to look at withholdings and such. Because sometimes the reports from within the systems that, the various custodians have don't necessarily give a CPA everything. And we've got some tax projections already built in. And so from a planning perspective, we're looking at when everything pays out and how much it's going to be already. So our reports usually for a CPA are really helpful. So it might be that we share that over email and they have a conversation. Oftentimes we are talking with the CPA as part of that and coming up with a game plan together. Just depends on if it's with the client or outside. Oftentimes it's outside just because CPA and I will use jargon together.
Right, exactly.
We'll use our
talk shop.
speak.
It makes me feel more comfortable knowing that you would work as a team for me, my CPA and my financial advisor. I love that. Here's another question from the tech executives. They want to know, how can I create a financial plan that balances my current lifestyle expenses with future goals, such as buying a house, funding my children's education, or actually starting a business?
Oh, yeah, that startup. I hear that one a lot. I have these ideas. Oh, this is just like the others, this is a great question. Balancing current lifestyle with future goals. So I think this comes down a lot to that 50-30-20 budget that I talked about. It's also getting clear about what your goals are and what's important to you. The way that we approach financial planning is that our job and your money, so our job with your money, is to help you get what you want out of life. Right. And so it's all goal driven. If someone comes to us and says, I want to just grow money to grow money, we're not the right fit. Unfortunately, what we see frequently with any high income earner, whether that's one of our healthcare clients or our clients in tech, is this catch-22 with the 401k and life that's happened. So people hear maximum fund your 401k. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to say almost everybody comes to us is doing that. Okay. Great. Check that box. To expand on where that's a problem is that income grew and contributing to the 401k is the thing you knew to do. And so I'm doing that. I've checked that box. Nothing else is really easy or apparent as what I need to do. I should probably save more money. I can open a brokerage account, but I don't know how much I actually need to save. So maybe I have a little extra cash. I'll put some in and invest it. I may or may not have a plan on how or why I'm investing it the way I am. And then, my cash reserve got a little bit bigger. Do I leave it in cash? Do I invest it? The issue with balance here, and I don't mean to burst anyone's bubble, is that oftentimes in this situation, lifestyle creeps up because there isn't an obvious and easy place to save. And so that 20%, again, just a rule of thumb, and I don't typically like those. I like specifics for an individual. It shrinks quite a bit. And so now lifestyle is oversized. And once we've gotten used to that, that's really tricky to go backwards.
Yes.
Yep. there's a couple ways to approach that. Some people say, okay, there are places that I can cut. Or there is a core set of expenses I have. Whenever our stock or bonuses or things come up that I don't need, that has to get saved to help play catch up. And so that balance kind of takes some manipulation based on what the situation is.
Okay. All right. Well, so then last question they have here, tech executives want to know, how can I optimize my compensation package to include the best benefits and equity options?
All right. So I'm not going to get into negotiations here. There's people, very skilled in that can give better advice than I can on that. But I think it comes back to something I said earlier. It's understanding stock, because a big piece of this is going to be equity compensation. It's going to be the equity versus the salary. Understanding those ISOs, those non-qualified stock options, the RSUs, 83B options, to know what that's actually going to mean for you, or to get help in this process to know what it's going to mean for you is really important. I think, again, knowing yourself and your situation, where you are in this journey that I mentioned earlier, is important. So are you somebody that, based on where you are in life, really feels the need for consistency of income? If you are, you likely need more salary, more consistent salary, and less equity. And some employers are more open to that than others. Or are you at the place where, hey, actually, I don't have big expenses and I'm feel a little more open to the idea that more of my compensation comes from equity. Okay. Then negotiating and finding a fit with a company is going to be different based on those two things.
Okay. You definitely tackled some big questions, but any other questions that you get, we're going to save those for a future episode of this podcast. I think that would work out really well.
Sounds good.
Well, in the meantime, tell people how they can get a hold of you if they want to talk to you directly.
Yes, they can reach us at thimbleberryfinancial.com or by giving us a call at 503-610-6510.
All right, Amy, until next time.
Sounds good, Michelle. Thanks.
Discussions in this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions. Securities offered through registered representatives of Cambridge Investment Research, Inc., a broker-dealer. Member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services through Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Cambridge and Thimbleberry Financial are not affiliated.